Hi everyone, this is Mike. This time around I'll be doing the paper one essay analysis, question analysis for the RI Brilliant paper. So for this recording, I'll be doing question 12. Winning at sport is due to wealth rather than talent. Comment. Okay, so this is I think some of you would be very tempted to do uh, the sports question if it comes out. For sports questions, I think it's advisable to have a range of uh, sporting examples you can give. If like me, you only know things from a few sports, maybe would be unwise to do it because then your examples will come from a very narrow pool of real life situations. Okay, okay. But for this question, uh, I think quite obviously it's a comparison question because of the rather than. So what the question is essentially asking you to do is to compare wealth and talent. So wealth, wealth. So wealth, I think we can simply take it as an abundant money, right? Or an abundance of resources, right? And then talent, uh, I wouldn't take the very narrow definition of talent as in like natural abilities, but more broadly skill, right? So it's trying to get you to compare, is it money and resources or skills that uh, enable people to win at sports. So winning at sport, it's basically just achieving sporting sporting success, right? Uh, I think the most obvious interpretation of achieving sporting success is being at the top of whatever sport that an individual or team is involved in. But I would also accept it if people take a broader view. So winning at sport also means overcoming certain barriers, right? That would count. I think that counts as winning. So overcoming, let's say, physical uh, limitations, overcoming gender barriers, for example, right? So if you take a larger view, a broader view, I think you will find that you have um, a more diverse range of examples to use for this question. Okay, so yeah, so the question. Okay, so this is the kind of question that I think it's a little bit of a false dichotomy, right? They give you a condition, and then they ask you, uh, or they give you like a situation, winning at sport, and then they ask you which is the cause, wealth or talent, and very often, uh, there is no singular cause for this kind of things. It's usually more complex. So this question is inviting you to be a little bit more nuanced in your thesis, in your stand. Um, yeah. So I think the move to make here would be you make one or two arguments on behalf of wealth and then on behalf of talent, and then you uh, find a balance or you synthesize the arguments you have, and then you have so your general stand would be something to the effect of how uh, both are equally important or both play a significant role in allowing people to achieve sporting success. Okay. Uh, so some possible points you can make. So the first one, if you want to look at uh, how winning at sport is due to wealth, perhaps you can say that mm, successful athletes or teams are usually able to scale heights because uh, of good infrastructure, training, gene, uh, and coaching, all of which require substantial resources procure, right? So what we are saying is that in order for an athlete to be successful or for teams to be successful, what they actually need is they need good infrastructure, they need good training equipment, they need good training facilities, and then you need good coaching, you need certain regimes that would help them either prevention from injury or recovery from injuries. So all these things you will require a lot of resources, right? I think if you look at all the successful sporting teams across different sports, they tend to be very wealthy. Very seldom you'll find a very successful, a sustainable, successful team that is not also the top few in their ability to generate wealth or in their ability to or in their financial ability. Right. So there is a very strong correlation that I think we can even make a conjecture that it is a causation. Right. So in that sense, sporting success and what it divorce. Right. Yeah, and then you can, so that's where you can have all your examples of like individuals or teams that are successful. Maybe it's from basketball, maybe it's soccer, or you can have certain individuals like, I don't know, the one that I have in mind is LeBron James. He's been playing in the NBA since I was a primary school student. So, yeah, he's been around for 20 something years and he spends a lot of money on maintaining his body, right? So, fitness regime, training regimes, dietary, yeah. So all these things in order, and especially now that you have all this uh, scientific sports science development, right? So it's all the more beneficial or all the more conducive to success if you have a wealth of resources to tap on to enable the athlete to maximize their physical capabilities, right? So in that sense, having the skill is not sufficient to do well, right? If you want to do well in the long run, you need money. Okay, so that's I think the first, probably the obvious point that you should talk about. And then, so at this point, maybe you'll find that, oh, actually, that's more or less all you can talk about, right? Infrastructure, training regime, coaching, all these things, they require money. So what the move that I would make is to look at different demographic group, right? Sports is a huge fraternity. So there are different types of sports. There is your more popular, very uh very well patronized sports. And then you have your emerging sports or sports for a smaller segment of of the community. So you can have a point about um, like adaptive sports. Adaptive sports are sports for people who are either disabled or they have certain physical limitations. So sports are adapted to fit the needs of these people. And then so you would be aware that there is like there are leagues for these athletes. There are competitions, major global competitions like Paralympics for these athletes. So for adaptive sports, well, there's a critical factor in allowing para athletes to compete at a high level due to the tools that they would provide. So that's the next thing. Right. So this one is a point on para athletes, right? So either people on play wheelchair sports people who uh, yeah, mostly wheelchair sports. I think wheelchair sports is very expensive. I think there is actually an article, and a Singaporean article, I think, in light of the Asian or SEA Games Paralympics or something, and then they talk about how expensive is it and how necessary is it for uh for for them to for people to invest in the sports, so as to allow these people to pursue their passions, their talent, right? So you can talk about wheelchair sports. Yeah. So they need special arrangement, they need special tools. Uh, oh, probably also track and field. Track and field, they need I think for the sprinters, they need their prosthetic blades so as to uh, compete in like sprints and runs and marathons. Okay, so this is one point that you can give. And then you can talk about women's sports also. So another, I would say, emerging sports scene would be sports, especially in the US Anglo-European world. So in certain segments of the sport fraternity, are of importance. So as to for uh, good. Okay, so uh, for this one, what I posted. Yeah, so this one, it's mostly on team sports. So for women's sports, I think the ones that tend to do well are the individual sports, like tennis. I think tennis, women generally do quite well. Like the gap between the men and women are less. Uh, Golf also they do pretty well. So it's always the team sports, right? Because you have a group of people, you usually need more investment. Uh, yeah. So and the problem that plagues a lot of these female team sports is that there is always like a huge gap between the good teams and the normal teams, right? It's always one team is just extremely stacked with talent because they just have more resources, right? So if we are able to get more investments into the smaller teams, then we create a better competition, right? So we create so in order for these teams to uh, overcome certain barriers that will allow them to win, then you will need to have more investment, right? So I think if you look at I think women's soccer is growing, it's an emerging sport. I think the English league, the women's soccer league, um, usually dominated by a few teams, right? And then the lesser teams are significantly worse off than the top teams. So you always have scores that run to very high numbers when a smaller team plays with one of the stronger teams, right? So I think even for women's basketball, it's similar. So for all these, in order to create a condition for them to even win, to have a fair competition, you need investments, you need money, you need wealth, right? Okay, so we have 3 points on behalf of uh, uh, wealth already. So for talent, I think we can talk about how nonetheless, we can talk about how at the end of the day, talent is still the thing that gets you over the line, right? I can spend uh, a lot of money, but if I spend it, if I make poor decisions, if I spend all the money on infrastructure and then I don't cultivate, or I don't find the best people to use all this infrastructure, I will not get the outcome that I want. So I think you can probably think, if you're interested in doing the sports question, you can probably think of examples where individuals or teams, they spend a lot of money, but then they either they have poor talent identification, therefore they are not able to create some kind of sporting success. Yeah, so you can say that sporting merit is ultimately decided by the most capable individuals or teams. And then and this often boils down to the talent. So the thing, players. Right. So hence talent is still paramount when one considers the ingredients of the purpose. Right. So at the end of the day, in order for a team to win, they still need to have talented players. Without talent, you cannot go very far, even with all the money in the world. In fact, money is used to buy talent, right? So that is our synthesis point, right? In order to show some kind of nuance and don't fall for that false dichotomy that this question is presenting to you. So you can say something like how you can say that ultimately wealth is used to acquire talent rather than replace it, right? So wealth is not wealth doesn't replace the talent. At the end of the day, you still need the talent to win. But what we want to say is that wealth is used to buy talent. Without money, you cannot buy enough talented individuals to win you competitions, right? So it's not a replacement for it. It's just a tool that we use, it's a means for us to get to the end, right? So um, so you can say that like talent, wealth, successful end rather than end itself. Therefore, wealth and talent are both indispensable. One means excellence today, right? So, yeah, you might want to include. You don't have to make it a separate point, but include in your paragraphs how wealth is increasingly important now because so there is like a I think there is like a it's related to uh the development of your scientific knowledge, your technology, right? Because the more these things develop, the more important money is in order to acquire the necessary tech development or expertise in that area to maximize your athletic output, right? So mention something about time, how now in today's context this is increasingly important. Mention something about the different groups of athletes that you have in the world, right? It's not just your mainstream sports, right? You have para athletes, you have female athletes. Okay, so all these things are just to make your writing capture more grounds, and then to show more range. Okay, so I would say, yeah, in fact, if you elaborate this a little bit, this might as well have been your thesis, right? But I think it can stand alone as a point. So your thesis would look something like that. So maybe you add some preamble at the beginning about how while advances in the field of technology may suggest that wealth is increasingly important, maximizing the potential of promising athletes. However, the fact of the matter remains that wealth is used to acquire talent rather than replace it. Okay. Yeah, so that's all I have for this question. Thank you.